Hi, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Megan.
For years, we were stuck in a rut, always complaining that nothing ever changed for us.
And then we realized if we wanted to improve our lives, we had to put in the work.
Each week on this podcast, we'll get into an aspect of personal growth, relationships, or just life.
Through our own experiences and guest interviews, we hope to inspire you to make your own positive changes.
Welcome to the Fools in Love podcast. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be talking all about the dangers of trying to be picture perfect.
Ooh, I can't wait to dive in. So this topic comes up quite a bit for us because there are just so many times in life when we believe other people are guilty of it too, but we are definitely, because what will happen is things will be going on in our lives and all of a sudden we realize nobody knows about it except us. Like we're just continuing on the facade. We just haven't spoken about it. It just stays internal. And on the outside, things look perfect. But in reality, things are less than.
Yeah, and I just think about like this has happened so many times throughout our lives, even with talking to other people, like they'll be suffering with things or things will be looking really rough and they're just not really communicating that in the moment. Like, I think a lot of it has to do with this whole social media age we live in. And I will just preface by saying, we will be saying some negative things about social media during this episode. And I mean, no, I'm not going to tell you not to use it or anything like that. But I mean, there is some negativity and there are some positives obviously with it. But I think in the social media age, a lot of us are trying to kind of keep up with the Joneses. We're trying to put forward these masks of these or play these characters or roles. We kind of touched on it last week in our episode. If you didn't listen, go back and listen. But it's a dangerous game when you're like playing a character and you're like, this is who I am. This is the person I am. This is the facade of the person I am. And so it can be really difficult when you're in those situations because you'll pretty much do anything to make sure that picture perfect self, that person of you that you've put in this box, that you've put on this pedestal, that the world knows you as, when that person is about to get out or that doesn't fall in line, like your life doesn't fall in line with what's happening, it can be a very dangerous game because then what do? Do you continue to put up the facade or do you start to get real and open up about what's really going on?
And it's interesting too because when we talk about this, we're not saying like share all your dirty laundry with the world. Like not everybody you're Facebook friends with needs to understand everything about your life. But there have been many times in our lives where we've noticed that either we or somebody we know that's going through a hard time, and online you would never see a hint of it. I actually know a girl who just today I saw a post where she was talking about how she'd been struggling with her mental health. And let me tell you, she shares that here and there, but only in like a very remote, like it used to happen to me kind of way. Not that she was currently struggling, or at least that I'd seen. Maybe she talks about it all the time and I just have kind of fallen off. But from what I had noticed, it did not seem to be a current thing. And so it was just like, wow, that's crazy that, everything looks like it's plugging along. The kids are good. Life is good. Marriage is great. And everything's picture perfect. But then really, when she finally opened up, she's struggling. And I think that a lot of us, probably 99.9% of us are guilty of that exact same thing. And it doesn't even have to be social media because don't we all do that just in like the checkout line at the store or on a phone call? Like I talk a lot on the phone. And so I'll be talking to whatever rep I get that day. And, it's always like, hey, how's your day? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How are you? Like, why do we tell each other we're good no matter how bad our day has been? Like, I'm never like, oh, yeah, I'm actually having the worst day of my life right now. How about you? Never.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like you're what you were just saying, the go-to, the immediate go-to no matter what is I'm fine. I'm doing well. Oh, how are you today? Good? Oh, I'm good. And we've talked before about that too, just the surface level conversations and never really getting to the bottom of it. And like Meg said, I mean, we're not suggesting go out and like share your life with some complete stranger. But what about the people closest to you? Are you kind of insulating yourself there too? Are you not allowing them in? I mean, I think about a lot when we were having our relationship struggles, and we were essentially going through hell and back, and there were very few people who knew about that. I know if you've listened to the episodes before, if you're familiar with us, you've heard our story, and the long and the short of it is, back in 2012, me and Megan almost got a divorce. I mean, our relationship was at the brink of the end. I mean, there was no turning back, baby. It was there. And because I was living in what we're talking about now, because I was so worried about the facade, or like what it might mean if I said it out to the world, not even the world, just the people I love the most, what would that mean? And I think a lot of it, if I'm being honest, I was just hiding in the fact of, if I don't share it, then it's not real. Like, if I don't break down my facade and let people in and pull back the curtain and be like, this is me, this is what's really going on, then it won't be real. And I won't need the help because, I can still just keep up this front. I can wear this mask. Everything's great mask. Mm-hmm. Everyone else can keep going on. And I think if I'm being really real with myself, the excuse that I would have used in that moment is I didn't want to burden other people. Like, I'm dealing with this and it's bad enough, but I don't need to stress out other people and have them worrying about me and what's going on. So I'm not going to let them in, because then that might bring them down. But then on the flip side of that, I could never have anyone there to help me along the way. And looking back now, it's like, why didn't I have someone help me? Y'all, I was depressed in that time. I know Megan was going through stuff too, but I'll speak to myself. I was so depressed during that time. I was abusing alcohol, not to an extreme. I don't want to build it up to be some crazy thing, but it was a reality of what I was living in. I was eating terribly. I was barely doing anything except going to work, coming home, and sleeping. And yet I didn't tell anyone that I knew about that.
And how did that serve you? Honestly, it didn't help you one bit. Yeah, you protected your image, or so you thought, but weren't you just hurting yourself even more?
Well, yeah, of course. That's the thing. I was protecting my image. And if y'all are resonating with this, I'm sure you can think of a time where maybe you're living a time currently right now. Maybe it was in the past. Maybe there's things you're dealing with right now that you're not sharing, and you're keeping up this facade, but there's a lot of pressure in that. And it's not serving you at all, because you're not asking people for help. Okay, yeah, sure, you're not burdening them, but what about if it wasn't a burden? What if they could be there as a support, and what if they could help you through it? And what if you could get through it, one, faster? What if you could get through it easier, with less difficulty? What if you could just have a companion or someone there to share it with? There's so many different factors of what ifs, but you'll never know that if you don't open up. Well,
and the other thing is, what if they're also going through a hard time and they need you? And because you won't open up to them, they're not opening up to you. It goes so, I don't know why we started this thing where just because things have to look perfect on social media, that things also have to look perfect to the real people in our very real lives.
Yeah, and it's so true, because y'all just think about, I think about all the people I interact with, and everyone's just putting on a brave face. Everyone's doing great in the moment. And we know that that's not reality of this world. This world's tough. Life's tough. Marriages are tough. Raising kids sucks. We can talk about that, can't we? But we can't, because we're afraid that we'll be judged. And I know so many times, and this is a sad reality, when I've opened up to other people and they're basically that sucks. That's hard. But they're not giving me anything back. They're not being oh, yeah, parenting is really hard. Yeah, I feel bad for you. Not oh, yeah, it is, and we've dealt with this or that. Oh, your relationship is hard and you're having some struggles. Oh, yeah, I am sorry. I'll pray for you. But nothing else. Nothing else. Don't open up to the fact that maybe you've had some struggles. Me and Megan have tried really hard now, especially talking to a lot of y'all. We're very honest about what's going on. And I will tell anyone that's dealing with struggles that, hey, we've done it and we've been through it and we're stronger than ever now because of it, because there's power in that. But there's no power if no one will open up and actually share their true self. And then what can happen is you get so far down the road and you've been playing this character for so long and you've been putting on this picture perfect self, you're just setting yourself up to, one, have everything come crumbling down when it all blows up in your face, which it assuredly will when you put it to the side and ignore it. Or two, you get to the years down the road and you're like, who am I? And what am I doing? And who is this person I am? And how do I change that? Because I've done so much about like being in this place and worrying about where I am and worrying about what other people might think. How do I talk to myself now? Like, how do I deal with myself?
Yeah.
And I think I prefaced it at the beginning, but I think a lot of it has to do with the social media age. And I remember when social media first came out. Yes, I'm that old, but I remember when it came out and it was like, cool, I can connect with other people. I can connect with other people that I haven't really connected with, that I've lost touch with. Like me and Megan have moved out of state a long time ago. And it's like, oh, cool, I can keep up with people. And that was great. But then over time, it's become this curated place where you put your happiest, most amazing vacations and photos and food and everything else. And it's like really become this thing where ultimately, like Megan said earlier, how is it serving you? And I've been reflecting on that recently a lot. Like, it's not really serving me well because it's making me just compare. It's just like living in a world of comparison all the time. And the difficult part is like to admit like when something's not right, or to admit when you might need some help, is you look around on social media and everyone else has it all figured out. And so like, how am I supposed to say that I don't? Because like something's wrong with me, clearly.
Yeah, it's interesting that life has to be such a competition. Like there are times when I look on social media and I'm like, wow, they have a really nice house, or wow, they're going on a really great vacation, and all these things. And yeah, those are facts. They really did get to go on a good vacation. They really do have a great house. All those things are true, but why do I care? Honestly, why do I care? Because in the end, constant comparison to other people's lives, even if they truly are the greatest thing ever, which I doubt they are, but even if they were the greatest thing ever, that constant comparison 24/7, never letting yourself off the hook, is exhausting. It's tiring us out. It's making us miserable. It's making us depressed. And it's really hard to find the gratitude and the good when all you're doing is seeing how you don't measure up.
That's right. And I just think about like now, I mean, I'm not going to get political on you, but like now when you look at social media, it's like unfriend me. Oh, you don't agree with me? Unfriend me. Oh, this or that. All I see is arguments and hate spewing back and forth, serving no one. Like, you are not going to change anyone's opinion on your beliefs, like no matter what side of the line you're on, by ranting on social media, by ranting on Facebook. Like, I see so many people just going back and forth, and it's like ripping people apart, spreading hate, because we're trying to like do this thing on social media. So, I mean, that's a rant on that. I'm going to stop there. But the reality is, we're all trying to live up to some standard that we're setting for ourselves based on an impossibility. We're trying to be perfect. We're trying to live our perfect little lives in our perfect little world. And it doesn't allow us to open up for anyone or to anyone.
And listen, guys, like right now, like it's really hard. I mean, even if you didn't lose a job, even if your family is good, even if all the things seem to be lined up, like there's still an underlying mental load that we are all carrying right now. It's just the fact of this year. It's just the fact of 2020. There's no denying it, that no matter how great your life is, that there is some sort of just emotional, mental baggage that you are carrying around at this time. And when we all have to pretend that that's not there just to keep up with the Joneses, just to keep the good look going, I mean, that is gonna just wear us all out in a way that we just can't even fathom. Like, I'm so tired of being like, yeah, good, thanks. Like, I mean, things are good. Things are good, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel exhausted. It doesn't mean that parenting isn't freaking hard every day of my life. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that like my auto response is to say that things are good, even when things are feeling heavy.
Which is funny because like our auto response is to make everything be good. But then internally, our auto response in our subconscious mind is to go to the negative worst case scenario. So it's like, outwardly, we're speaking like that everything's great, everything's good, nothing to see here. And then inwardly, when the same thing is happening, the dialogue is, oh no, the worst thing's going to happen. Everything's going to explode. The world's going to end. Oh no, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? How am I going to pay this bill? What am I going to do here? What am I going to do there? Like, it's the complete polar opposites based on mind versus what you're actually spewing out into the world.
Yeah. Because you don't want to let anyone know that you're in a panic mode, that you're in a depression mode, that you're in anything but perfection.
Right. So, I mean, the question would be then, how do you fix it? Like, how do you start to fix this? Because this is a real problem, and I think y'all would agree. I can see a lot of you nodding your heads during this, but like, then what do we do though? Because a lot of us are living in this guise and this whatever mask you're wearing, I don't know what it is, but we're all living or trying to live in this like picture perfect society that we all live in. So then what do we do to combat that?
You know, I think one of the things that's really come into my brain right now is just being vulnerable with those around you. And it's bringing to my mind the episode that you did with Andrew of Allegory and Elm on their podcast, where you and him were talking about manning up and just being a man and yet being vulnerable. And you were just discussing all those things. And I think that it really starts there, men or women or whatever you are. Start there. Like, open up. Like, don't be afraid to actually say to those that you can trust how you're really doing. Don't not ask for advice. Don't not ask for help. We want to pretend like we don't need help. We all need a helping hand, guys. All of us.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think vulnerability and some transparency with what's actually going on. But I mean, the fear there would be, I mean, just to play the other side of the coin, and I can hear some people thinking this, but a lot of us, the problem is we've tried that, and then like people judge us. And so like if the one person out there judged you or said something the wrong way or didn't show up the right way in that one conversation in that one moment, you then put aside the idea of being vulnerable for all time.
Right. You have to push past that. You have to push past the idea that if it happened with one person one time, that will happen with that same person another time or anybody else ever. Like, you might have had an experience where your best friend didn't respond in a way that was helpful or felt like you were being heard or seen. And that doesn't mean that that same best friend won't respond completely different the next time you have something that you need to share. That doesn't mean that the next person, your mom, your other friend, somebody else around, that doesn't mean that they're going to also respond in the same way. Sometimes you just have to keep trying and not lose the faith that there is going to be somebody that you can actually build a real relationship with that's more than just, hey, can you believe that weather?
Yeah, and you know how that like becomes impossible if you don't share, if you stop sharing. Like what Megan just said is so true. If you continue to share, you're going to find someone who you can actually have a meaningful relationship with. But if you cut yourself off and don't share at all, then you're never going to have anything beyond the surface level. And that's a lot of what vulnerability is. You have to be open and honest with what's going on. And I think the world as a whole needs more vulnerability. Let's put the egos aside. Let's open up and be honest and communicate, because the reality is you never really know what's going on with anyone out there. And if we all are more open and honest, think about how much less conflict there would be, because a lot of conflict is just built up by the fact that no one opens up to try to understand anyone else. And so the scary part is, like, most of us won't open up and won't be transparent, but then we're never going to get past it. We often think about, what could I lose? What could I lose if I'm transparent? Like, oh, this person might judge me. Oh, this person might do this. Oh, this person might do that. But what could you lose if you're not doing that? Because all this times where this has happened in my life where I didn't share, I just continue to feel emptier and emptier.
And alone.
And alone. And I think a lot of us, if we're being honest, most days we feel alone. We're surrounded by people every day. We're surrounded by people on social media every day. But we can feel alone. Y'all, not to get super deep, but I mean, suicide rates are up a ton this year. I don't know the exact statistic, but they're up a lot. And so a lot of us are so afraid to share what the heck is going on in our life that we'd be willing to take our own life. Like, that's some deep stuff, and that's not a place that I want you to be. So I would encourage you to open up, because I really wish I would have. If I look back now, I never want to be in a place where I'm not willing to open up and talk to someone about it. But you're going to have to reach out to more people, because the reality for me was, back in the time where I'm thinking about with our relationship, it's you were my person. You were the person I would talk to. And I did that to myself. I mean, I didn't keep any relationships going. So you were my person. And so who was I going to talk to about it? Because, yeah, I guess you could talk to your family. That's a little awkward.
Right.
Not saying you can't do that. I mean, certainly you can use them as a resource. But
especially in a relationship.
Right.
Question,
but I mean, they have some stake in the game too. Right. And I think if we're being real honest, what I could have done, what I probably should have done is actually talk to a professional.
Yeah.
But as a man, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to talk to a professional, but maybe that's what some of you could consider. Because I'd much rather have had that uncomfortable conversation than just slipped further and further into a more depressed state.
Yeah. And I think that brings up another really good point of just finding your friends, finding a few people. And I get that there's not going to be a whole slew of people that you can open up to. This is not college anymore. We don't have 29 best friends. I understand all of that. But if you can find the 1, 2, or 3 people in your life that will truly make a difference for you, that will be open and be truthful with you and go back and forth, so that you're not always feeling oh, I can't share that because I feel like such a burden to them because they have the perfect life. No, it's reciprocity here. You have to both be willing to open up and deal with things. And those are my closest relationships right now, where, I have a few girlfriends, one of them being my cousin, where we can say hey, parenting is the worst thing for me right now. Being a mom is so dang hard, and sometimes I just can't even handle it. But also understanding that hey, we're still doing it. This isn't a real, this isn't a cry for help here, people. This is I need to share this with somebody. And I know that you won't judge me for this because you also struggle in motherhood at times.
Right. Yeah. It's not a pity party. It's yeah, we're both struggling, and let's put our arms around each other and let's, get through this thing together. And because a lot of times in life, the person you're talking to isn't going to fix it. But just knowing that someone else has gone through a similar experience, or maybe not even a similar experience, but another hard experience, because let's be real, which of us hasn't gone through a difficult experience? And you can kind of pick their brain and you can put your arms around other people and lift them up. But we're never going to get to that place if we're trying to live in this world where everything's fine, where everything's great all the time.
And just don't forget that by you sharing, you might be helping someone else in more ways than you could ever imagine. You might be saving that person who feels so alone because you were brave enough to start and they never would have. So it's super important that you don't feel like you can't share because somebody might think something. Maybe that person needs you more than you even need them.
That's right. And maybe what you need to do, not maybe, what you need to do. And I don't mean to pry at people or interrogate people or anything else. But if you go beyond the initial question of how are you, let's be real. A lot of us can notice when something's off with somebody else. When they're not right. The people that are in your life all the time, you can sense it. Even strangers, you could probably sense it. You never know how far it can go by just being there and listening to them. They might not have anyone else to listen to them. But if by you opening up and allowing them to share what's going on, it can make a huge difference. But the thing is, you have to be open and willing to give time too. You have to be open to it. We're all so busy and moving so quickly that that is what a lot of happens. Sometimes we just need to slow down and allow someone to take the blinders off. Stop looking and focusing on what you're doing right now. And look around you and notice the world around you. There's people around you that need help. There's people around you that might not need help, but they need lifting up that you could support and they could support you. But we're also dead focused on whatever it is we're doing on that given day that we can't even take our blinders off and see the world around us and see other people that we could potentially lift up.
Yeah. And it even helps like in intimate relationships too. Between you and me, I'll notice that sometimes we're like, yep, I'm fine. And like, it's fake. It's fake. And why do I feel like I have to pretend with you? Like, you know everything about me. There's no reason I should be feeling like I can't share. There's no reason you should feel like you can't share with me. And yet sometimes we're like doing the, yeah, I'm fine. And until you like maybe press me a little bit or I press you a little bit, that's when the real stuff comes out.
Right. And honestly, like even in doing that, like it caused a lot of anxiety for me by not asking you a lot of times. Because of our history, like there's been times where it's like, I won't ask you something. And then it's like, I feel like it might be me. Like, oh, well, I didn't want to ask you because it might be me. Which is just so silly because if it was me, shouldn't we talk about it and figure it out?
Right. And usually it's like, oh yeah, my shoe is really bothering me right now.
Right. But I mean, like, honestly, it, like just to be transparent with you and practice what we preach, this just happened today. I noticed Megan's been a little off, like before we were even recording this podcast. And I asked her, I'm like, is everything all right? Like, is just everything all right? Not like in an accusatory way, not in the negative way. Just like, hey, is everything all right? And she's just like, yeah, you know,
I'm a little funky today. Like, I don't know. I had a dentist appointment that just didn't thrill me. And ever since then, I just haven't been exactly on my game. It's not like I'm upset with anybody in particular. I just am having a slight day that I know I need to get back on track. I know that. But right now I'm just in a teeny weeny funk. And I think that that's probably less of the dentist and more of just like life in general. I mean, we're sitting here in a uncalled election. We're sitting here in the middle of COVID stress and anxiety and wearing masks to your dentist appointments and all the good things. And just all of that just like takes a toll. And there's nothing even wrong other than just little tiny moments that made Brandon think like, hey, all good? All good? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We're all good. I just feel a little bit off.
Yeah. And so really the recommendation here is stop trying to be picture perfect and understand that no one else is either. We're all dealing with things. We're all dealing with stuff. We've all been going through stuff and we all will continue to have things come up in our lives. Don't ever look around at someone else and be like, I wish I had what they had, because you don't really know what they have. We're living in this curated world where we have no idea. And the only way we're going to break down those walls and break down those barriers is by starting to be vulnerable, by starting to be open and transparent with each other and being real for once in our lives. Because so many times we're sitting out there living this character and we're not being real and honest and true to who we truly are.
And if you feel like you need a little bit of a break from all of that, pop off of social media for a few days, for a month, whatever you think you need, because there is always going to be a little bit of a stress relief when you're not sitting there comparing and wishing that you had what somebody else had. Stop doing it. You don't need to do it. Get the heck off of there for however long you need to and be happy, be healthy.
That's right. And I mean, our invitation to you, and it goes every time, whether we say it or not. If you're struggling with something, if you just want to talk to someone, if you just, who knows? You want to talk sports, weather? We don't care. If you need someone to talk to and you have no one else in your life to talk to, we're here. You can shoot us a DM at The Fools in Love. You can shoot us a message on Facebook. Whatever it is, we are here. We are open to talking to you. We'll never duck your message. Just DM us and we're here and available for you. The invitation is always there.
Hey B, what did you think of that episode?
I think it was pretty dang good.
Well, what should someone do if they enjoyed these last 30 minutes?
They should probably head over and leave us a review so we can reach more people.
They definitely should.
Guys, if you like the Fools in Love podcast, please go follow us over on Instagram at Fools in Love Podcast.
We'd love to connect with you and learn more about what you'd like to hear.